All right, my name is Heather Gray, and the program is Just Peace, and I want to welcome you all to our discussion this evening. We're going to be talking about certainly current events, what was happening in Orlando, but also about Muhammad Ali and the service that took place last week. And I'm pleased to tell you that we have here in the studio Imam El-Amin, who has a long history of involvement here in Atlanta in the Muslim community. I'm going to read a little bit about him. He has served for the past 23 years as the resident imam of the Atlanta Masjid of Al-Islam, one of the largest and most progressive mosques in the United States. He worked closely as an aide and supporter of Imam W. Deen Muhammad and the mosque cares. With his leadership, the Atlanta Masjid has developed the Clara Muhammad Elementary and W. Deen Muhammad High Schools in the same neighborhood of East Atlanta. These schools have continuously produced for 28 years exceptional students of moral and academic acumen and has sent forth young scholars to numerous universities and colleges including Harvard, Stanford, Morehouse, Spelman, Duke, Michigan, Vanderbilt, and Smith. Working as a close aide and supporter of Imam W. Deen Muhammad, Imam El-Amin has traveled the nation and the world, representing concerns and interests of Muslim Americans in such places as Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, Sudan, Palestine, Israel, Jerusalem, Egypt, Morocco, Spain, Turkey, Rome, England, Denmark, Malaysia, Bangladesh, and South Africa. On 2 occasions, Imam El-Amin was part of the select delegation of Muslim leaders that traveled to Saudi Arabia with Imam W. Deen Muhammad to assist in the religious orientation of the U.S. military in the Gulf crisis. He organized and led 2 delegations of progressive Muslim young adult leaders to participate in 2-month study tours in Malaysia and to build international bridges. That is only part of the Imam's amazing biography. Welcome to WRFG.
Thank you very much, Heather. I'm glad to be here.
It's just a treat to have you here. Now, you were also, not mentioned in this biography, a friend of Muhammad Ali's.
Well, I've known, let's say it like this. Muhammad Ali has been an influence in my life since I was a teenager. But for most part, it was from a distance as he influenced many people. But when he first won the Olympic gold medal, I'm a native Atlantan, and so I was 10 years old, and so I tuned into him. And then with his transformation to become a Muslim, a member of the Nation of Islam, it really influenced me or opened the door later. I converted to Islam similar to the way he did when I was 24 years old. So another decade later almost, then he opened the door where we knew we could change our religion. It was much easier to change your religion, change your name, and to make a strong commitment for causes that you believed in. So he influenced my life in that way. But after becoming Muslim during the 70s and the 80s, I had responsibilities that kept me in touch with him. For over a decade, I was the chairperson for the National Islamic Convention of our community, and he was always a main part of that. He attended that, and we moved it around the nation. So I had responsibilities of making sure he was taken care of. And as well, he came to Atlanta often, and so as the Imam of the Atlanta Masjid, I've been retired from that position for the last 6 years now. Imam Suleiman Hamid is the Imam now. But when I was the Imam, I had the responsibility of hosting him anytime he came to Atlanta. One other point I will make is that in 1974, we sponsored a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Maynard Jackson.
Oh, wow. Did you really?
Maynard had just become the mayor in 74, and so we staged it out in the Southeast Lakewood, now was then called the Southeast Fairgrounds, and Maynard hung in there for 2 rounds and then threw a punch, and Ali hit the deck. So Maynard won that fight. Of course, it never really touched Muhammad Ali. So I did know him quite well, but I really have always been an admirer of Muhammad.
Right.
Quite often he would be in Atlanta, and I was speaking with Jabari Samama, who is now the president of Georgia Piedmont Technical College, and he remembered when he was a guest speaker at one of our Clara Muhammad School banquets, and Muhammad Ali just came in all of a sudden and took away all of Jabari's thunder, because once Muhammad comes into a room, that's it. That's it. But he said he joked with Muhammad when he was actually in college, and he said when Muhammad first lost to Joe Frazier, Jabari Muhammad said, "How does it feel to be knocked out? That was the first time you've been knocked out. How does it feel to be knocked down?" And Muhammad said, "Well, I wasn't knocked down. I was just tripped over a left hook." So he tripped over a left hook. So that's Muhammad Ali's sense of humor. Is always ready to share it with anybody and everybody.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Were you also moved by his stance that he took on the Vietnam War?
Well, yeah, he really set the stage for me personally in terms of being able to listen to Dr. King's position, because when Muhammad took that position, Dr. King was beginning to speak against it, and many African Americans, now I'm still a teenager, so I'm young, but many of the African American leaders were telling Dr. King, don't get into that, stay with domestic issues, don't get into any international things, don't take any positions on this war. But Dr. King was brave enough and strong enough to go on and do that. Anyway, but I think Muhammad Ali's position was a little ahead of even Dr. King's position.
Absolutely, by about 8 months.
Yeah, and that was really the first time. I was a student in ROTC at Booker T. Washington High School.
Wow.
And so that was the first time I really started thinking about the Vietnam War from a different perspective, from a global perspective rather than from the patriotism perspective.
Yeah, I maintain that Dr. King was empowered by Muhammad Ali when he came out with that statement, and probably made the decision that I'm going to do it as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, it definitely
made his famous Riverside speech.
In '67.
Right. Yeah. Against the Vietnam War.
And that's the speech. I don't. I'm a student and a strong follower of Dr. King, and that's the speech I use rather than "I Have a Dream" speech. I mean, everybody knows that "I Have a Dream," and it's a beautiful speech. But it's that Riverside speech in 1967.
Powerful.
Exactly 1 year before he was assassinated on April 4th. 1967 was that Riverside speech, and it's really the one that opens your heart and your mind.
It's true. Were you seeing Muhammad Ali much during this period that he was very sick?
No. I think I was keeping up with him, but not seeing him. And we have some of his relatives that live here in Atlanta, and some that frequent Atlanta. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we sponsored at the mosque Miriam, we call her May Ali, and she was doing a workshop on communication. So telling us then of the condition of her father, and that she was headed out to Arizona once she left Atlanta to be by his side. So I guess probably it's been maybe about 5 years ago since I've really had a one-on-one contact with him. But I've been in touch with the family and always kept up with his condition.
So I know you went to the service in Louisville this past week. Were you there both Thursday and Friday?
Oh, yes.
So tell us about what happened on Thursday. Tell us about that.
Well, Thursday set it aside to be the janazah prayer, the Muslim prayer for the deceased, and they had it in the Freedom Hall, which a large convention hall, and it felt like maybe 15,000 people there, Muslim.
15,000, wow.
Yeah, Muslim, Christian, various others. And Imam Zaid Shakir out of California sort of administrated over the service. Imam Zaid had been visiting with Muhammad Ali and his wife Lani for the past 5 or 6 years on a monthly basis, and so he was selected to be the one administer over the service. And it was the Muslim burial service is very simple. We basically say some prayers, and it because everybody knows of Muhammad Ali, we didn't make it a memorial, but it was so many people of different backgrounds and faith and everything that it took a little while to organize it enough. But it was very moving, very moving. So it started at 12, and normally it would be like a 15-minute service, but it ended up being about a 2-hour service. But it's basically recitation of Quran and prayers. We did hear from several people that spoke about the influence of Muhammad Ali, and then we prayed for him. The next day, which is a little different from what we would normally do in terms of burial, but the next day was a processional with the family going through the streets of Louisville, started at the funeral home, but then went to his birth house, and then through the streets of Louisville, past the Muhammad Ali Center, and then to the cemetery. So that's where maybe 100,000 people were out in the streets just to get a glimpse of the processional and to throw roses or kisses to the champ. And then he was buried in one of their most popular or well-established cemeteries. Then it's the next day that we had the memorial service that started at 2 o'clock. Well, it started a little late because of the processional, but so it was the same day of the processional, that Friday, and it actually started at 3 o'clock. And he had a very phenomenal 3-hour homegoing service with Bill Clinton being the final eulogist, but also we heard from Senator Orrin Hatch, the conservative Republican, and 2 rabbis. Rabbi Michael Lerner, you might be familiar.
Yes.
Yeah, he gave the most political presentation of the thing, but Christian minister and a Buddhist, and actually one of the Buddhist priests is from this area. What is her name? Diane, Sister Denise, and she actually is from this area of Atlanta. And then 2 daughters spoke, as well as Lonnie Ali, his wife, Mariam Ali, and Rashida Ali, but also Malcolm X's daughter.
Oh, she spoke as well. I knew she was there.
And she made the only regret that Muhammad ever expressed was that he regretted that he didn't maintain his friendship with Malcolm X. And she stated that through their rekindling a relationship, he felt that he had reestablished his relationship with Malcolm through the daughter.
Let me just ask you, with all of these various presentations, was there a common thread that you noticed?
Well, yeah, the common thread was peace and compassion and humor. Billy Crystal was terrific. He really did his thing where he could imitate Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali, and it was profound. But the idea of love for humanity, love for people of all types, all kinds, and peace, but at the same time a type of humor and self-confidence that Ali always displayed. Several people would give all kind of compliments about Ali, and he says, and this is just the way he would have said it. So it was very, very, very emotional, but also quite uplifting experience.
So it was a celebration.
It was a celebration, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And we actually did not use any music in it, but there was some spoken word and some poetry sort of decorated the occasion quite well. Had several receptions at the Muhammad Ali Center. Have you ever had an opportunity to go to the center?
I haven't, no.
It's a wonderful center.
Well, what's there?
It's 6 stories high, and you start on the top part and you come on down and you really experience his life. You can experience many of his boxing matches, but they have some holograms and 3-dimensional depictions. Muhammad and even his daughter, they have his daughter is fighting in a ring, and you can get into the ring and fight with her as well. So all kinds of imagery, but it's really an educational experience, and many of the children in Louisville come there for study.
Well, that's good. So there's just I would love to see it sometime.
Yeah, you should. It usually takes about 3 or 4 hours to go through the whole center, but it is a enlightening experience.
Is there, there's just so much about Muhammad Ali. The fact that he was able to appeal to so many and took such a stand, but it was not, his work was not just against the war, winning boxing titles and so forth, but he began, more of an international scope in his positions, of even being supportive, of course, of the Palestinians, and he was quite remarkable, really.
He was a special soul. They even had some Native Americans making a presentation because he was a strong supporter of the Native American communities, and he would try to march with them anytime they had any kind of service or protest going on. He would be supportive of them. But what we have to also remember, I think the Atlanta Journal-Constitution got it a little wrong, because they insinuated that with his lighting the torch of the 1996 Olympics here in Atlanta, that's when the world embraced him. But really, the world fell in love with Muhammad from the very beginning, and then he began to move his fights all over the world. So he's fighting in Manila, he's fighting in Zaire, he's fighting in Indonesia, he's fighting in London. He's sharing his skills and his personality with the whole world, and the world embraced him. I think what 1996 did, it enabled a good number of Americans who were still standing off from Muhammad to realize that this was the time to let whatever prejudices or ill will that they had, ill feelings, to let them go and see Muhammad as the man that he was. And so it really brought America into the global admiration of Muhammad and those values that Muhammad Ali carried with him, that he personified.
And just to encapsulate those values, what were they?
Well, dignity, human dignity, compassion for all of humankind, the feeling that he was not superior, even though he boasted I'm the greatest, but he always, like they said, when they changed his status of the draft, and he was saying to them, well, before you had rated me unable intellectually to go into the Army, but now you're trying to draft me. He says, yes, and they question, well, you shouldn't be worried about it. You say the great. Say, yes, I am the greatest, but I never said I was the smartest. So, so he could also put himself. He wouldn't hold himself up so high that he couldn't be normal. He would show forth his faults but the spirit of undying humanity, that no matter what the difficulties were, he would always rise to the occasion and come back. So when he lost the fight, he lost 5 fights. I think he won something like 59 or so, but he lost 5. But never was he one that would be down and out. He would bounce right back and say, I'll be back. And he came back every time.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment and continue this discussion. We are talking with Imam Al-Amin, and we'll be back in just a second. Stay tuned. Again, my name is Heather Gray, and the program is Just Peace, and we're talking this evening with Imam Al-Amin. It's just such a treat to have him here in the studio. We've been talking about Muhammad Ali, and I need to say that as a young white woman here in Atlanta in the 1960s, when he stood up and raised his fist, and made the statement against the Vietnam War, it was empowering for me. It gave me courage, too.
Yes.
So, but I just wanted to ask you, what, in your opinion, will be the legacy of this great man? What?
Well, I think the legacy of Muhammad Ali is he demonstrated that we can have our differences but that we are all connected, and if we push hard enough, we can rise up to the highest ideals, which is really the nature for the human being. So he sort of connected everyone. Everyone really throughout the world had a love for Muhammad Ali, and and he showed us that we can always grow and we can change and we can be better. You know, he was not content being less than what he could be. You know, every time he would lose a fight, he would say, I can get it back, and he would. But even when he was out of boxing, when they forced him out of boxing, he was the most popular speaker on college campuses, and he was speaking on behalf of peace and humanity, to get us out of this nationalistic frame of mind and get us to see ourselves as world citizens. He said, life is short, we get old so fast. So it just doesn't make any sense to waste time on hating. He was not a hater, he was a lover, but he could talk trash, but it was really in the spirit of promoting his fights and promoting his image, but actually he had a deep compassion for all of humanity.
Now, I think that some of this was just a part of who he was, but some of it he also got from his Muslim faith.
Well, yeah, definitely. Now, the first part that what attracted him was the Nation of Islam, and that was because it was trying to remove the imposed racial inferiority that was in the African American community. You know, the Nation of Islam. Well, also you have to give credit to Elijah Muhammad, because he's the one that named Muhammad Ali. You know, when he first became a member of the Nation of Islam, he was Cassius X, and the X in Islam meant that we were ex slaves, ex junkies, ex pimps, ex anything that was negative, that we were no longer going to be that. And it also meant that our origin was unknown, and we were waiting to find that treasure that the X marked. And so very soon, probably about a week or 10 days, Elijah Muhammad gave him the name of Muhammad Ali. And this was inspiration, I'm certain, because that is no better name could any of us think of for this man. It fit him so well, and it resonated throughout the world. But now when Elijah Muhammad passed, and we pray that God grants Elijah the paradise, that his son Wallace Muhammad became the leader of the Nation of Islam and began to immediately transform this social reform, black nationalist movement into a legitimately global Islamic community. So he changed the name from Nation of Islam to the World Community of Islam in the West, and Muhammad made that transition easily. And then the difficult transition came when he changed the name from World Community of Islam in the West to the American Muslim Mission. Nation of Islam had been sort of anti-American, and so now Wallace Muhammad brought the flag in and changed the name to the American Muslim Mission, and that was a serious test for a lot of people. So that's when you had those who left. Minister Farrakhan left at that time because he didn't want to be connected with that part of it. And so it was always a question of whether Muhammad Ali would leave and go back to the old teachings, or whether he would stay within the Quran and the life traditions of Prophet Muhammad and the global community. And he did not even pause at that transition. He made that change, and he said it really fit with what was going on in his soul, that he wanted to be a lover of all people. He didn't want to think that any people were inherently evil or inherently devilish. He believed that everybody had goodness at their core, and some had been led astray, but that the devil could come in any colors, any shades, and so goodness also comes in all shades and all colors. So he made that transition quite easily, and stayed in that focus, always proud to be a Muslim, and the idea that there was but one God, and that there were many names for God, many rituals for God, but that there was one creator for us all, and furthermore that at some point at the end of our lives, that same one who created us will judge us. And in between the creation and the judgment, God gives guidance over and over and over again, and forgiveness over and over again, and mercy over and over again. So this the faith of Muhammad Ali, the religion of Islam, also opened up all kind of doors for him throughout the world, and he represented it so well. But people would not just see him only as a Muslim; they saw him as a Muslim and a righteous human being, and that's what all of us as Muslims, we strive to be seen as believing righteous human beings.
It's interesting also that Elijah Muhammad was also a draft resistor during the Second World War.
He was jailed. He was
in jail for 5 years, I think.
Yeah, and he was I think 46 or 47. He was too old to be drafted at that time. And even his son Wallace Muhammad and others served time in prison because they refused. They were conscientious objectors. So they weren't dodging the draft. They didn't run away or anything, but they just refused to enter into the military when we didn't have the kind of rights and protections here at home.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to shift gears here for a moment. I was reading something by Dave Zirin, who is a writer for The Nation magazine, and he has written a fair amount about Muhammad Ali. And he came up with something this weekend. He had gone to the service, and then the situation in Orlando happened, and he said it was just, this juxtaposition was just too painful. So here we have a situation in Orlando where some 50 people, and that includes the killer as well, actually lost their lives. And we don't know what the status of it is right now, because there were 53 people who were injured in what happened in Pulse, this nightclub in Orlando. And Omar Mateen, who was known as the killer of this, is being credited as being Islamic, right? Mm-hmm. Now, to be perfectly frank, I've not yet heard, Imam, about any kind of relationship he had with the mosque or anything like that. But this is another situation where we are going to experience this rhetoric like we've been hearing from Donald Trump about the Muslim community. And it's just a tragic incident. So, well, I'd like to ask you where you are on this, or, where should we go from this? I mean, well, I love your opinion.
Yeah, well, we have been on such a high note with the champ's passing, and he brought so many people together. Most people that came to that service had made the statement that they had never seen such a diverse crowd of people in both of the services, of all ages, all races, all religions, all just nationalities. People travel from out of the country just to get there to say goodbye to the champ. And so to come from that, where really a high moment not only for Louisville but for the whole country, and then to be confronted with this horrendous act in Orlando, which from my standpoint, I have been, many people asked me to come on and talk about that, but from my standpoint, this is just one sick person that did a horrific act, and it doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't have anything really to do with my religion. And so I have been hesitant to even discuss it publicly on the media. But we have to understand the times we live in. I've heard Donald Trump, and he's really ranting and raving about Muslims because of this. And when we have other shootings, and sometimes it's the person is in fact doing things, most of these abortion killings and everything, they're saying it's their religion that they're responding to, but it's never the whole religious community of that particular individual is never called to or required to make a response. But with Muslims, this is our case.
It's just different, yeah.
So it I have looked into Omar Mateen's life, and he seems to be, he was troubled, but he doesn't
mentally unstable, yeah.
And he's had the FBI had investigated him twice, and that would be interesting. It'll come out later what that investigation was about, or what that questioning was about, and everything. But the real issue is a person that can get a weapon that can discharge hundreds of rounds in less than a minute, and nobody thinks that that's problematic to have these kind of weapons available. And so even he was trying to get body armor. They have that, and so it really, from my position, it really is. That's the area where this love for guns and not realizing that for many people, their personality changes when they're packing.
A gun?
Yeah, when they're packing a gun, when they have this
It
kind
makes
of
them, what does it
this
do? It
kind of
makes them feel powerful.
when
or
this
something
kind of
powerful.
power
Yeah.
and obviously he has some serious issues going on, mental issues or whatever, and we don't realize a lot of times that the social pressures that we are putting on people, and it's a lot of times our young Muslims are susceptible to all of these pressures that day in and day out. You got presidential candidates talking about your whole faith and your whole religion.
I know, really.
As if it's the villain. So he does not represent our community, and this is the issue that every group has its geniuses and its extraordinary people, and one of ours just passed, Muhammad Ali, exceptional human being. But every minority group also wants the right to have its fools and its criminals without being condemned as a group. So yeah, we have our fools, we have our criminals, we have people that identify with us and do the worst acts, but that doesn't mean that that's what Muslims are about. And so murder is prohibited in Islam. Freedom and there's no compulsion in religion. We can't make anybody believe. We have to take the position that you have the freedom to make a decision of what kind of lifestyle, what kind of life you're going to live, and that relationship is between you and your Creator, you and God, and there's no way that I can impose my views or my ideas of what's right and wrong upon another human being. And so it's a shame, but as you said, I'm sure that probably for the next month or few months, I'm sure until the presidential election, it'll be one of those hot topics. And here, this particular man, 29 years old, but he's born and raised in New York. Yes, his parents are from Afghanistan, but he's born and raised in New York, and he is, whatever happened to him, it happened to him from the environment here in the U.S. and America, and not from somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to mention that throughout this whole incident, I kept thinking of the massacre that took place in Charleston.
Yes.
Actually at the AME church, and Dylan Roof is this young white fellow, and I thought the difference, the way the dialogue has taken place. The massacre in Charleston was acknowledged as unbelievably tragic as well. But I realized also that when Bush was talking after 9/11, that he said we're going after terrorists. So my first thought was, okay, so he's going after the Ku Klux Klan, right?
Right, exactly.
America's homegrown terrorists.
Yes.
And that needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah.
Because this remains a problem in America.
And even before they knew the identity of this murderer, criminal murderer, Omar Mateen, even before they knew his identity, the news media was saying, we're waiting to find out if this was an act of terror. 50 people were murdered, 52 people shot and hospitalized in a club. It's certainly an act of terror. It's terrifying to just even think about. So why do we have to wait to find out if it is somebody that's associated with the Muslim community to call it a terrorist act? It's
exactly.
It certainly was an act of hate, and it is terror. But we have gotten to the point, and the media just really has given itself over to that the only acts that are called acts of terror or terrorism are those that are perpetrated by people who call themselves Muslim.
I agree.
Yeah.
We're going to open up the phone lines. The phone number here into the studio is 404 523-8989 if you'd like to give us a call and ask a question, join this discussion. Again, my name is Heather Gray, and the program is Just Peace, and I'm pleased to tell you that I'm here in the studio with Imam El-Amin. We just had a long discussion about Muhammad Ali, and then we started talking about what happened in Orlando, and I believe we do have a caller. Caller, you there?
Yes, I am. Just want to say a great conversation, and it was, I think, pretty excellent the way you transitioned from Muhammad Ali to this tragic incident that took place. I have intentionally not been watching the news, so I wasn't aware that there were up to 50 people killed in this, incident. But I was just interested. I have not been watching the news. I try to get out of it during the political season because I'm just sick of that whole nonsense. But I recall when Donald Trump was asked a question on some interview about David Duke, and he just refused to answer the question. He has to do research. He has to find out about this person. He has to do this. I don't think that was his response in this person who committed the shooting. Like your guest said, it's just automatically we have to shut the Muslim community down and, get rid of them, contain them, control them. I just wanted to get your comments on that. I'm not aware of what Donald Trump has said related to this incident, but just curious because I'm reflecting back to that situation when he was asked about David Duke and how you responded to that.
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and where they've really came out that Donald Trump was very familiar with David Duke, and he was just postponing to see which way he was going to really go with that. But he should have taken that position very strongly that David Duke is one of the worst white supremacists and who has supported that kind of terrorism that we lived up under with the Ku Klux Klan for so many years, and that is coming back. Trump is actually attracting those kind of folk again, and what he's saying today, and I wish I was like you that I didn't have to look at the news, but I basically have to. But he's gone really much further, and he's starting with the issue that the President Obama and even Hillary Clinton won't use the words of Islamic extremism or Islamic terrorism, and they want to attach it to that, and he's really preaching that this is what it is, and we're not going to let these people come into the country, and so he's shifted his immigrant issue with the South American Latino immigrants. He's really indirectly dealing with that, but he's putting it on the whole Syrian immigrants, and here this particular man that did this is born and raised right here in New York, and so it doesn't really even relate to this situation, but he's pumping the fear, and this is the challenge that we have, and what this fellow, deranged as he must be, is really the hate that he allowed to take over his life, and this fear and hate are these partners that are being fed to the American public, and when we have that kind of mental environment, it's just no telling of what comes out of that.
I think the other thing that we've also talked about is that it's clear this young man was mentally unstable, yeah. And that's also critical to realize that. It's really unfortunate.
So what connected with this is what Muhammad Ali really, really worked against was hate, and that's what's feeding so much of the problems we have. And even in war, to go to war with the people, you have to sort of get them to hate the other people, to look at the other people as being less than human, so that you can feel comfortable killing them and murdering them. So hate sometimes is masqueraded as patriotism, that I'm going to kill you because it's patriotic, but really you've been fed the idea that some people are inferior to others, and so you can hate them, and therefore you can kill them.
It's a dehumanization process, I think. So where do we go from here?
Well, one of the things I think we definitely have to be supportive of the LGBT community and what has come to them, and that's always been a little challenge for Muslims. But the reality is that our religion demands that we defend people from injustices and persecution. Even if we might not agree with their lifestyle, we're obligated to defend them. And this was a terrible injustice and that's done to that community. So I think it will strengthen the liaison between the communities and at least change the dialogue somewhat. And we have to know, though, that the main problem is this freedom of having whatever kind of gun I want. And we are not a mature enough society to be able to handle that. And people are out there with weaponry that is more extensive than many developing nations have. And really we are exporting the arms that are yesterday's arms. We're exporting them to the developing nations. So we're really feeding this kind of culture. Just as cigarettes became unpopular in America, we started selling them over in other places. But as Americans want more and more powerful guns that can shoot 32 rounds, 100 rounds, and 700 rounds, then all the other 6 shooters and 12 shooters, they are going to poor countries, so to get them connected.
And just
to
an
that.
expansion of violence.
Yeah, and
Well, there are a lot of people that make money off this, so that's I think another major consideration here.
yeah, so that's in my mind, that really is where the issue is, and it's not about people who are hunters or going for sport, but we have to see that this is just insane. 30,000 people lose their lives to gunshot wounds every year in America. 20,000 of those are suicides. So this is the main way of committing suicide. If you were thinking about suicide and chose a slower method, you might change your mind. You might get some help. But with a gun, there's not going to be much help going on.
No.
But we talk about seat belts and car fatalities, but we have in the majority of our states, we have more fatalities from gunfire than we do from car accidents.
Imam El-Amin, I think this is the correct number. I heard that Obama has dealt with 14 mass shootings since he's been in office.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
That's just
and
incredible.
And most of those come after Sandy Hook.
Yeah, and Congress chose not to do anything after these first grade children were killed.
Yeah.
That is just, to me, it's unconscionable. But
And
it does seem strange to me also that, and I know this has come out quite a bit, but this Omar, he had been investigated twice by the FBI, once in 2013 and the other in 2014, and yet he was able to go to a gun store and buy an assault weapon.
Right.
I don't understand. His name was not on a list or anything like that, or he passed muster somehow with the licensing.
Yeah.
It's just incredible to me.
And if I go in the store and I want the top grade body armor that even the police don't have, shouldn't that raise some question in somebody's mind?
One would think.
Yeah.
One would think. Well, maybe we will see some changes in Congress. I don't know. I don't have my hopes up for it. Perhaps we will. Is the Muslim community in Atlanta planning anything else, either around Orlando or Muhammad Ali?
Yeah, we're participating. All the different organizations and many of the mosques are participating in the candlelight ceremonies, and everybody's made statements to give our sympathies and supports to the families and to make it clear that it's a shame we have to do it, but we have to make it clear that this does not represent us, does not represent our religion, and this is just one individual who really had bought into an American culture of gun violence and is not representative of religion. So we're doing that. We had something also special at the mosque for Muhammad Ali, and we'll continue to lift him up so that we can sort of let him help us get through this difficult circumstance.
Oh, that's good. Could you what in particular? You just talking about his life and his mission.
Right.
Go ahead.
His life, his mission, and how he has touched so many people. People like Muhammad Ali usually is just a certain level of people that are touched, but he touched everybody, and everybody has a Muhammad Ali story, and most of them are one-on-one experiences with Muhammad. So we'll do that. Heather, I do want to sort of wrap up with a couple of things that related to Muhammad Ali, but also related to this what we've just experienced in Orlando. That our belief that death is not the end of things. That there's life beyond death, and that people that are martyred, like those people in the club, that they get an entrance into the paradise because their life was taken under unjust and an undeserving circumstance situation. But also I want to close on that idea of Muhammad Ali. Prophet Muhammad, praise and peace be upon him, said, "Not one of you should wish for death due to any worldly affliction." And so Muhammad had this Parkinson for years and years, and he wanted to continue to live. And the prophet said, but if there is someone wishing for death, he must say, "Oh, my Lord, keep me alive so long as life may be good for me, and cause me to die when it's better for me to do so."
Wow.
And so he passed right on time, I believe, and may God reward him with the best of paradise. And God says in Quran, "To each is a goal to which he turns you, so strive together as if in a race towards all that is good. And if you do that, wheresoever you are, God will bring you together."
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Again, my name is Heather Gray, and the program is Just Peace, and we've been talking with Imam El-Amin, who is here in Atlanta. It's just been a pleasure to have you here on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather.